Hello, I'm Oscar Crawford. Welcome to the teaching ministry of New Eden for Black History Month 2013. Thank you for joining me. Today's message is going to focus on a short black man named Zacchaeus. We're going to pick up his story in the New Testament Gospel of Luke, chapter 19. Join me now and listen for the reading. As Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, behold, there was a certain man named Zacchaeus, which was chief among the publicans, and he was very rich. Publican meaning he was a tax collector of the people, and people don't like tax collectors much in any context, any culture, in any time. And so Zacchaeus is believed to not only be collecting taxes for Rome and the religious establishment in Israel, in first century Palestine, but he's also probably taking a cut for himself that may or may not be authorized. So he's not a favorite person, but the brother is rich. And he goes on to say, and he wanted to see Jesus, who he was, but he couldn't, because now you got to understand, Jesus is a rock star for his time, and you know how it is when you're trying to get to see somebody really popular, kind of like trying to see the president. There are always a lot of people, so Zacchaeus, being a very short brother, was having a tough time getting to see Jesus, so he realized that if he wanted to really see him, he needed to run ahead and get in front of the crowd and climb the highest thing that he could find, so he could see Jesus from above the crowd. And so it says, and he sought to see Jesus who he was, and he couldn't for the crowd, because he was little of stature. He was a short brother. And he ran and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass by that way. And when Jesus came to the place where Zacchaeus was up in the tree, Jesus looked up to him and said, Zacchaeus, hurry, man, come on down from that tree. I'm going to hang out at your house today. The text literally says, and when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste, and come down, for today I must abide at your house. And Zacchaeus made haste and came down from the tree and received Jesus joyfully. Now, what is it like when you are trying to see the rock star or the celebrity who's passing by? But they're not just passing by. They look up at you and they call you by name and call you to come and be with them. That's a moment. That's a peak experience moment for many. And when the people in the crowd saw it, they all started to talk. And they asked, why would Jesus go hang out with the sinner and be wanting to go to his house? Later on, during the encounter or Zacchaeus' time with Jesus, after spending some moment with him and being influenced by him, Zacchaeus stood up in the center of everybody and said, behold, Lord, I am going to give half of my goods to the poor. Literally, he's about to give up half of all that he owns immediately to help people who are doing without things that are necessary for life. And it goes on to say, and if I have taken anything from anybody wrongfully, I'm going to give back to them 4 times what I took. And Jesus said to Zacchaeus, this day is salvation come to your house, for as much as you are also a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and save that which was lost. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for the privilege to share one more time with viewers, with friends, and with loved ones, for people who try to live by spiritual direction, to listen for what you're speaking to our hearts, to hear the voice of Jesus give us direction so that our lives might be meaningful. Thank you for this privilege to speak to black men particularly, and to others generally, that which comes from your word. Today, Lord, I pray your blessing upon me that I may communicate so clearly that all things will be understood. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. A short black man. A short black man. Our culture, Western culture, tends to look at people who are short, not in as popular a light as they do people who are tall. We live in a very reciprocally ordered culture. For every plus, there's a minus. For every good, there's a bad. For every light, there's a dark. For every fat, there's a thin. We live our lives balancing a reciprocal set of opposites, day and night, rich and poor. I mean, we live like that, and so we tend to look at people who are taller, but not too tall, as being more aesthetically pleasing. We tend to like to look up to people, and that gives a suggestion of looking up. and shorter people have the tendency people look down. And we don't like the idea of looking down. Zacchaeus was a man who was wealthy. Wealth is good to be looked up to, but as a person, because of his job and his responsibilities, he was looked down upon, and people really didn't value him very much. Now, one of the questions I want to ask black men today is, what are you doing? What are you doing? Black man, what are you doing to have access to power, privilege, and prestige? Are you working for what you're earning? Are you investing and doing business such that you can profit? Or are you manipulating the circumstances to take what you can take, legitimate or not? That's the question. This is the question that Zacchaeus had to deal with, and it's the question that men will have to deal with in all times. Are we going to be creative and listen to the spiritual voice of the one who has created us to get wealth? Or are we going to be manipulative? Are we going to steal? Are we going to be criminal to get what others have worked for and take it unto our own? You know, you may not want to think about this very much, but this country that we live in, the United States of America, this country that we live in, was taken by people who didn't live here. There were people already living here. Oh yeah, we know this, we know this. There were people already living here, but people who came from Europe decided that they wanted the land and its resources, and so just came and began to take. Now, we have to face these questions. Do we want to live authentic lives in line with what is good and what is right, or do we just want the privilege of power to be able to take and do what we want? A lot of people are going to answer that question in the letter. They're willing to do whatever they have to do to have for themselves. It doesn't matter what happens to everybody else. Zacchaeus is regarded to be such a person. He's not only an instrument of Rome, he's not only an instrument of the religious establishment in Israel, but he's his own source that he wants to benefit. So he's taking money for three reasons. He's taking the third portion of money, not because he's been privileged to, but because he has the power to. And nobody has the power to check and to see whether he's doing what is right. He tells people what they have to pay, and they struggle to make ends meet by paying it. Now, when people have what is regarded as short man's complex, you all heard of this. Short men's complex are guys who, when they get in a fight, if they're short, they really feel like they need to get in the first lick very strongly because they may not get it anymore if the person is bigger than them. Or people who are short may study sciences for responding to conflict in such a way that being short is no longer a disadvantage. But short people have to think in other ways that people who are taller don't generally have to think in. Now, does being black and being short add to a man's challenges as he tries to make it in American life? I would declare to you that is likely to be true. So what must one do in order to not live life from a perceived deficit, to be able to really have regard for what God has done by creating and giving life, by being able to live life in such a way as that seed can be planted and harvest can be enjoyed, and life and family and community can be experienced in a good way, such that all people have the opportunity to reproduce the same kind of success? That's the question before us. Remember, I said to you on yesterday that black men are affected by every negative socioeconomic indicator than all other men in the nation. And that is likely to be true across the board, with the exception of perhaps the Native American. The Native American still gets a pretty rough ride in America. And it's for a number of reasons. All of us don't really want to assimilate into dominant culture, because to assimilate into dominant culture means to give up who we were and where we've come from in our history. But then there are others who agree to assimilate. Want to know the real truth here today? The real difference between black people and white people is essentially only color, because we share the same values. Now, what that literally means is that black people have tended to assimilate for the sake of going along to get along and to get the same kinds of things that people determined to be enemies previously. We want those same kinds of things. So living in a big house on a hill, having the best car, best furniture, most money, you know, whatever it takes to be that, we think that we can escape whatever our differences are if our money is together. Booker T. Washington actually said in his Influence that if your pocketbook is together, your politics are together, and money does seem to minimize difference. Now, at the very baseline, it really doesn't, but we have this illusion that money makes us equal to everybody else who has money. There's a really big deal still going on between people who are different by color and culture. W.E.B. Du Bois, that great intellect at the beginning of the 20th century, said the Negro problem will always revolve around race. And then others would come back. Gunnar Myrdal, a Swedish sociologist, will come to study the Negro problem in America, and he would essentially say the American creed is not equal to the American deed. The American Negro is treated like a stepchild, an orphan child, but somebody who's not as good as other people. And literally, during Black history, there was a time when people who were Black were not regarded to be totally human, which meant that white men and people in power could use Black people to do anything they wanted to. All the way over from West Africa to North America, shipmen used Black women with impunity, and people who died, they just threw them overboard. There was no real regard for life. So we're talking about, if we're going to become quality human beings in our culture, we have to value life. And when we value life, we won't do what Zacchaeus was doing. We won't do that in any context. We won't take advantage of other people just for our gain. I hope you're listening to me today. All right, now, what happens, and we'll be talking about this a great deal over the coming week, what happens when we have a personal, direct encounter with Jesus? Listen, now, Zacchaeus is rich, and he enjoys a bit of influence and power as a result of being rich. He doesn't get respect, but he does have power and influence as a result of being rich. People don't like him because of this, but this is what he's got it going on. He can have anything he wants. But he hears about Jesus. He's been hearing this buzz about this rock star personality, maybe the Messiah, who Jewish people have been looking for centuries, maybe the Messiah. So in order to go and have an encounter with him, or to just see him pass by, you know, people go through changes just to be in the presence of somebody who has status or as a celebrity. So Zacchaeus, even though wealthy and has influence, he wants to go see Jesus for himself, and in so doing, he got out in front of the crowd and climbed up into a high point in a tree so he could literally see Jesus as he passed by. He doesn't anticipate that Jesus is going to see him or that Jesus is going to care about who he is. It is important for him to look and see Jesus for himself. He wants to share a bit of the experience that crowd has experienced as Jesus is passing through. Black man, anybody care about you like that? Does anybody think good of you when you pass by? Do you get noticed? Do you have value? Are you building your own self? Are you building your family? Are you helping to build community? Or are you just a person nobody sees? Only you can answer that question. Only we as a conglomerate can answer that question. But I declare to you, if we will do where I'm trying to take us to get us back to that desert valley floor where those bones stood up united as a great Black army, there is our opportunity. Our opportunity doesn't lie in our being dead or living out dead conditions. Our possibilities lie in standing together and marching together with a common focus and common goal to build and rebuild and continue to build. I know I got witnesses out there on that. Sure we do. All right. So what happens when we have a direct encounter with Jesus? Literally, we do change, and Zacchaeus is going to give us some proof as a result of what happens to him. Think about this. After Jesus notices Zacchaeus, and doesn't just notice him, but calls him by name and tells him to come down, he wants to go and spend the day at his house. Look at what happens as a result of that divine encounter. After a bit, Zacchaeus has a change. This change, we don't get to see it in the text because it's not that clear in the text, but it's clear the result of what has taken place, because he stands up and says, nobody prompts him. There are no cue cards. There's no teleprompter. He gets up because his own heart has been affected, and he says, behold. And when you hear people say behold, they really got something they want you to see or pay attention to. He says, behold, Lord, and calling Jesus Lord. Behold, Lord, right now I'm going to give away half of everything that I possess, half of my wealth, to the poor. Now, if you're going to give your wealth to the poor, you really have some notion that the poor are doing without something that's necessary for life. And what are those things? And you might ask, are there any Black people doing without these things? Doing without proper nutrition, proper food, housing, health care, education, opportunity to work. Those are those kinds of things. And so Zacchaeus, being aware that there are some poor, he may have been a player in making some people poor. He stands up and says, look, I'm going to give half of everything I own away to the poor. Now, you believe that if a wealthy man gave half of his wealth to the poor, it would cause a change in their life or have some positive impact or influence in their life? I declare I believe it would. He doesn't stop there. He goes on to say, listen, if I have taken anything from anybody wrongfully, I'm not just going to give them back what I took. I'm going to give them back 4 times what I took. Now, if you do the math like I do the math, you can see that Zacchaeus is about to be broke. But look at what Jesus says has happened. Jesus ends up saying, you know, I'm not here just to hang out with you because you're wealthy. No, man, that wasn't the point at all. What wasn't it? I'm not here to make the feeling good feel good. I'm here to seek out and save that which was lost. And because you are also a son of Abraham, you have had this experience that you've had today. And it's as if Jesus is thanking God for Zacchaeus' experience as well. What kind of change, black man who's doing without things that are necessary for life? I'm not talking to the brother who's got it going on, who thinks he doesn't need anybody, who's made it in this culture, who feels good about where you live and what you drive and what you wear. Brother, I am not talking to you, but really you need to hear what I'm saying too. I'm talking to the brother who really needs to experience a change because he may be ill, may be broke, incarcerated, any of these kinds of things that keep you from living a loving, functional, and productive life. I really am talking to you. What do you need a divine encounter with Jesus to do for you? What do you need? What do you need to be delivered from and delivered to? And what would happen such that you would be able to say, look, I'm going to start to live my life for some beyond myself. I've made a wreck out of me, but I'm going to start to work on me. I'm going to reconstruct me. I'm going to become a part of that black army that was once dead, laying on a desert valley floor. I'm going to allow resurrection to take place in my life. I'm going to be reassembled. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to orient myself towards success. And I'm going to do that not just for me. I'm going to do it for me, but not just for me, but that I can become a blessing to me and a blessing to others and begin to feel good about what God has created me to be. Who are you out there who feels just like that? Whoever you are the reason that these messages are coming forth, and the reason we'll be focusing on resurrection all week. Where resurrection is necessary, something has been dead. Something has been dead. Something has been dead. The spirit inside Zacchaeus has been dead because he's been living out this very selfish, tortured life as a result of being rich and not included in the community because nobody likes him. But he's been miserable. He's been disconnected from his culture and likely even his family. It appears he's living alone in his opulent wealth, but he's deriving no real benefit from it. What good does money do you if you're not happy? Somebody need to hear me. What good does money do you if you are not happy? Zach was not a happy brother. But after an encounter with Jesus, he had a whole brand new life because he was resurrected and no longer a slave to what he had been thinking about and doing with his adult life. He was no longer going to be a slave to money. But guess what? Zach knew how to make money. He can now take his skills and gifts and talents and use them in such a way as they can be profitable for him and others he might serve. Who do you need to be thinking about like that? Brother, do you need to go home? Do you need to go home and reconnect with your family? Okay. So you got 4 kids by 4 different women. Stop right there. Don't make any more. Don't make any more in the context with which you've made these children and created these relationships where you've owned up to no responsibility. Stop right there and start doing what the men's choir back at the New Salem Baptist Church in Columbus, Ohio used to sing. They used to sing, I've got to clean up what I've messed up and start my life all over again. I got to clean up what I messed up. I can hear them singing that on a Sunday morning, and sometimes we just have to face that. We have to clean up what we've messed up and start all over again. If you're the brother who needs to clean up and fix up and start all over again, please realize you cannot do that by yourself. You need to join yourself together with some other brothers who are already managing. They've already been resurrected and they're trying to live a new life. Get together with people who are succeeding. Get together with people who can give you hope and inspire you. I pray that you have a divine encounter with Jesus personally, such that this powerful change will be so alive in you that it can't ever turn back. I hope you have been able to hear my heart talk today. I've been talking to you about a brother named Zacchaeus. Short black brother, rich and wealthy and miserable. But after a direct encounter with Jesus, his life changed. I pray your life can change today in the direction you'd like it to take. If you don't know anybody who can help you do that, send me an email. I'm going to have had things all on the bottom of the screen throughout this presentation. The text that you can refer to over and over again. But I'm also going to give you an email address if you'd like to begin to dialogue with me, and I may know somebody where you live, and I can point you to a place where you can hook up with brothers who are really trying to turn their lives around, trying to clean up what they messed up and start their lives all over again. I'll do my best to do that. Thank you for joining me today. Listen, get with me again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about a crazy black brother, so crazy that family and community had exiled him to the cemetery. Thank you for joining me again today. I'm Oscar Crawford. This was the teaching ministry for New Eden, celebrating Black History Month 2013. God bless.